All right, good afternoon. Thank you to everyone that joined us today for the LinkedIn presentation. We're talking about web presence and LinkedIn. My name is Amy Ratliff, and I am the Director of the Engineering Career Development Center and the Co-op program. And I am excited today to talk about LinkedIn. I will show you a presentation and appreciate all those that are joining in. If you'd like to ask questions again, please add that to the chat or use your reactions to let me know that you have a question, and I will do my best to answer those. Let me go ahead and pull up the presentation and make sure that you can all see everything. Okay, can you all see that now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and can you see the actual presentation and not the background of my my note screen and everything?
Yeah, the actual presentation.
Okay, good deal. All right. You know, as the title says of this particular session, we're talking about maximizing your online presence and personal brand, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great networking tool. Often individuals don't know how powerful it really can be. And that's because it takes a lot of time and effort to put in to be able to build your profile, to be able to connect with other individuals, and to be able to use it at its full extent. But first of all, I want to just start off by talking about web presence and online web presence. Often we don't think about the picture that we are presenting about ourselves to in the virtual world. But now, over the past year especially, it is very important that we recognize that we do have a web presence, and it is important to manage that web presence. And when I say web presence, that can include LinkedIn, but it also includes any version of who we are that may be represented on the web. And that can be through social media sites, it can be through articles, it can be through images. So it's very important when you're going into a job search to be familiar with what is on the web about who you are, because if you can find it, so can the recruiters. And in my suggestions I give to students quite often is to Google yourself, to go out to Google and put your full name in, put your middle name in, do all sorts of variations so that you are actually seeing what someone would find if they're doing a search on you. I would also select images. Don't just do news, but do images, because then you're going to be able to see what comes up when someone tries to populate your name. Now, specifically today, we're going to talk about LinkedIn and how you can present yourself on LinkedIn in a professional manner so that recruiters will be able to see that best version of who you are and what you offer in a job recruiting. So what's the difference between LinkedIn and my resume? I sat in on a session the other day that was a really good session about the importance of developing your LinkedIn profile. And part of the conversation was around what is the difference between LinkedIn and my resume. The simple answer is that your resume should be a brief document. Your LinkedIn profile can be as elaborate as you want it to be. It can tell the story in depth. And as you see here listed on this slide, it goes a little bit further into depth of who you are. It gives you room to elaborate. Your personality can show a little bit more through your LinkedIn profile. You have the ability to ask for and give recommendations so that individuals who are viewing your profile will actually be able to see a little bit more insight into who you are. A resume is great, and it does show all your qualifications and your experience, but it doesn't really elaborate on who you are, what passions you bring to the table, what your personality is. It also allows you, LinkedIn versus your resume, to network, to build a network of individuals with whom you may have common interest with whom you may share that you graduated from the same school, maybe you follow the same groups, maybe you're interested in the same employers. You're also able to connect with recruiters in certain industries who have visibility and connections through LinkedIn. LinkedIn is not necessarily, I wouldn't say that's a sole source for you to be able to do and utilize in a recruiting process, but it is certainly one of the major components. Resumes, very important. Understanding what presence you have on the web, also very important. If you hear me in on another session, you would know that in a job search, I very much encourage you to be very organized and detailed, do research. All of those are components of the job search and being successful. LinkedIn is a part of that. But the great thing about LinkedIn is it doesn't necessarily stop with just this job search. It can go on after the job search. It's about networking in your field beyond that search. So yes, it can connect you to job opportunities, but it can also help you to network with future opportunities, with colleagues, with professionals in your field. There is a saying in the career development world that if you're starting to build your LinkedIn profile while you're on the job search, you're almost too late. And what I mean by that is this is a process that should start now and go continually through your professional career. You want to make sure that you have established a profile, that you're sharing who you are long before you're making those connections. Does that mean you can't make the connections now if you're on the job search? Yes, you can certainly do that. You can build your profile. You can do it anytime. But it is great to be able to be forward thinking and do that well in advance so that you are making those connections and building up a relationship in advance of possibly needing to ask or request information about a particular position. Again, the caveat is you can certainly do it at any time, but it's great if you can start early on in the job search process and use it as a networking tool. Any questions so far? I'm going to check the chat to make sure. Okay. All right, before I go forward, I just want to make sure there wasn't any messages in the chat. We're going to go over the items that you need to make sure that you include in your LinkedIn profile and in the entire context of what you consider your LinkedIn account, how you can utilize it and how you can get the most out of it. The very first thing is to complete your profile. And in your profile, it's like many other things. The more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. If you imagine when you're looking at individuals' information on LinkedIn, whatever they share is the knowledge that you have. So you're in control of what you want the individual to be aware of on your behalf. In this case, I did a screenshot of my particular profile, and we're going to go in a little bit more depth about the different categories. In the session I was in last week, they were talking about the importance of a headshot, of being able to have a picture in your profile. The views that you will receive when you have a headshot or a profile picture are extremely higher when you actually have it versus when you do not. So that is something you, at the very basic, very bare minimum, you want to make sure that you have a profile and headshot. The background, you will see that I do have a picture of the University of Alabama because I choose for it to represent who I am and my role and my potential network. In my particular role, I am interested in making connections both professionally and personally, and that may be because I'm trying to make connections on behalf of the University of Alabama, but also because I have made relationships with individuals through organizations that I want to maintain and be able to call on should I need advice or should I need some feedback on a particular issue that I may be encountering on the job. Maybe, in a year or two from now, I may want to look into other opportunities. And so I want to make that connection be as professional on my behalf as possible. It is important to link and include something about you. In the About section, you want to make sure you include information about who you are and what you bring to the table, what you're interested in. This is what I was referring to earlier in your profile photo. It says 14 times more profile views on average. that is something that is a bare minimum that you can do on your profile. So you want to make sure that you create your profile, that you upload a photo, and if possible, put something that is relevant to you in that background photo. Keep in mind that this is a professional networking site. So your headshot, while it doesn't have to be taken by a professional photographer, it does need to be a headshot. It's best for it not to be a casual shot that you may have on your Facebook or Instagram account. You want to make sure that it represents you in a professional manner. Oop, go in the wrong direction. Your headliner or summary. This is where you have an attention grabber. If someone comes to your account, does a search, finds you, you want them to be able to find information quickly. In resumes, we often will tell students and anyone who's asking or inquiring about it that a recruiter will look at your resume about 7 seconds. So you have a very short window of time to be able to give that first impression. The headliner and the summary is your way to do that, to give them a hook or a tagline, something that's going to intrigue the reader so that they're going to want to read further. So take that time to use it as an attention grabber. Where you see yourself in the future, what you want the person to know about who you are and what you bring to the table. You want to include your experience section. The more detailed your experience section is, the more information you're actually providing to the reader. This bullet, says the experience description is one of the most relevant and important sections for the viewers. I refer to this session that I was on last week because while I utilize LinkedIn, I'm always looking for tips and tricks. And there was a LinkedIn professional from the actual company there. And one thing they talked about was the importance of elaborating in your experience section. One area that I personally want to redesign on my LinkedIn profile is the experience section, because they suggest, the experts from LinkedIn suggest that you actually make it more in paragraph style. I currently have it in bulleted style where it's listing my experiences in bullets. This is the skill I have, this is the skill I have, and I'll show you that in just a little bit. LinkedIn professionals suggest that you actually write a little bit more of a story about what your role is like in a paragraph style. I think that there's no right or wrong in this particular area. You need to find what's most comfortable to you. For me personally, I do plan on revisiting that section of my profile and changing it more from a bulleted style to more of a storytelling or a paragraph style. You want to focus on the skills you've learned, something that you can actually share with the reader that will tell a little bit about your story and what qualifications you bring to the table. Always think about individuals that are looking at your profile. What is the story you're sharing? Are you talking about your computer experience, your speaking experience, your leadership abilities, projects that you've worked on? Make sure that you're elaborating in a way that is telling your story. This is really interesting because this is a presentation that I have given many, many times, and I put on here bulleted points are preferred over running text. The caveat to that is that less than a week ago, I actually heard a LinkedIn professional say that paragraph style storytelling is a great way to tell your story. So keep that in mind. Step 4 is the education section. You want to make sure that you do list your school, your degree, when you were there, even the coursework that you have participated in. And the reason that is important is in many fields, your coursework may provide you with a qualification that an employer may be looking for. Maybe someone is trying to network with another individual who has similar interests, and coursework is what kind of draws that attention. So keep that in mind. Members with a school profile tagged in their, members with a school tagged in their profile get 10 times more views on average. So certainly if you know there are things that you can do to increase your views, you want to make sure you do that. So there's simple things like putting your photo there, building out your profile, elaborating or expanding on your experience, and including your education. You want to make sure that you include skills, minimum of 5 skills that you have learned from your previous experience. This helps recruiters find you if they are looking for keywords or areas that they want someone to have expertise in. This is where you're going to be able to shine. Include general and specific keywords. One way that you can find out what are some important keywords. Now, let me put a little pause on this. If you are in an active recruiting search, keywords are very, very important because those could potentially be the way that a recruiter finds you. If you are more using LinkedIn for a networking tool, they're not quite as important, but you certainly want to pay attention to them because people could be using that to search. If you're looking for keywords in a job search, I encourage you to find some jobs that you're interested in and look very specifically at the job description that is listed and associated with that particular job. You're going to see some things in that job description that they're looking for. Maybe it's called preferred qualifications, maybe it's required qualifications, minimum qualifications. Look for those keywords, and if you have those skills and you are able to share that information, make sure that you include that in your skills section or in your experience, because that's going to populate in a search. Here's another way to increase your profile: 13 times more views with at least one skill tagged. So that's another area that you can easily include to make sure that you're more visible and available for anyone that may be looking for your profile. Write a summary that ties your experience, your personality, and top skills together. We talked about it in the very beginning. If you only have a few seconds, a few moments that you can attract the individual that's looking at your profile, the reader, the recruiter, the person who wants to network with you, make sure that you're giving them the information that they're looking for. Use your summary to describe or explain your trajectory. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? What are you passionate about? Get creative. I wouldn't necessarily say that creativity is one of my strengths. There are individuals that can really put a hook or a line out there that tells a lot about them. Maybe it's a quote, maybe it's something humorous that tells a little bit about their personality, but you're drawing the attention of the reader in when you add some personality to your summary. Other things to include: you want to make sure that if you have a good resume, and I hope that you do, if you don't, you want to make sure that you reach out to the Career Center to work on getting that document developed. You want to make sure if you have it and you feel good about it, that you upload a copy, that you've included the information on your resume, on your LinkedIn profile. If you have licenses and certifications, certainly include those. Those are very important. You worked hard for those. If you're affiliated with any organizations, it's important to include those as well. The important part about organizations is again related to keywords. People that are affiliated with the same organizations may have that common thread or commonality that they want to be able to connect with other individuals that have those same interests. So if you are affiliated with certain organizations, I encourage you to list that. If you have written an article, published, have graphic design experience, maybe you've done a project in the field of engineering, whatever it may be, you want to make sure that you link that and that you include information. If there is a web reference that you can reference, include that. If you have volunteer experience, that may show a little bit more about your individuality. For me, I love animals. So it would be very important, which I don't think I have it on there now, but to include something about, my love for working with animals, whether that's Humane Society or shelters, whatever it may be. That's not necessarily in my professional experience, but shows a little bit about who I am personally outside of those boundaries of work. You see a couple statistics here. 1 out of 5 hiring managers say they've hired someone because of their volunteer experience. Maybe it's something they're also passionate about or they're interested in. 1 out of 3 hiring managers are interested in seeing hobbies and extracurricular activities. Maybe you are into whitewater rafting. Maybe you're into tennis. Maybe those recruiters or people that are networking are also interested in those things, and that is what draws the attention. So keep in mind, your resume is pretty much limited to 1 page. Your LinkedIn profile is not limited to that. So you have the ability to include all that information and elaborate on it. A couple numbers to share. 75% of hiring managers report looking at LinkedIn profiles to learn about the candidate's background. I'm going to stop. I see we've got a chat here. Let me see if I can actually see it. Oh, the slides don't seem to be changing. Okay, let's see what's going on. Can you see this now? Can everybody give me a thumbs up if you can see the numbers? Okay. I'm going to go back to the slide before and see if that works for you. Can you see that I transitioned to one that says other things to include? Okay. So maybe there was some kind of glitch, but hopefully we're back on track. The numbers. I said 75% of hiring managers report looking at LinkedIn profiles to learn about their candidate's background. When you get a resume in as a recruiter, and I can even say this because I've had recent open job recruiting or searches, you're looking to find any information you possibly can. That's where web presence and being able to control what someone else is finding out about you is in your purview. If you have a LinkedIn profile, you're able to give them what they're looking for. Most recruiters, if they get a resume in, they're going to scan your resume and then they're going to start looking to see what they can find online about you. So keep that in mind. You have that in your control. 50% of hiring managers will decide whether to move forward based on their LinkedIn profile. With the pandemic over the past year, I would say that number is probably a little higher now. They had to rely on virtual interactions, and LinkedIn is a great virtual connection and networking tool. 56% of hiring managers report candidates do not describe their job roles well enough or with enough depth and detail on LinkedIn. Always keep in mind that it's an elaboration of your resume. Networking on LinkedIn. I've referred to this several times throughout the presentation. It certainly can be used in a job search, but it can also be used to network. In my case, I use that, as I said, to network with colleagues from other institutions, possibly with employers that I would like to have recruit our students at the University of Alabama. It also allows you to find out what is a common thread or news within certain fields that you're interested in. I'm going to show you my profile in just a few minutes and talk a little bit more about how to network. Can y'all all see my slides progressing? I want to make sure that I'm okay. Good deal. Bullets, I love bullets on PowerPoints, but I also like to talk through them. You know, it says whether a professional from a LinkedIn group, someone you admire, recruiter, finding common ground is what you're looking for. So be conscientious and gracious with your interactions. As I show you my profile, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. What that may mean is that you want to be respectful of taking the time of someone and making those connections. Certainly it's fine to make a connection if you've met someone at a conference, a classmate, a family member. If you do not know someone and you're trying to reach out as a cold call or making a connection without knowing that person, it's always on the professional etiquette and courtesy side to send a brief message letting them know why you want to connect. What is the commonality? Maybe they're in an organization that you're a member of as well. Maybe they work for a company that you're interested in and you'd like to learn more information. Maybe they're an alum of the University of Alabama and you have that in common and you want to be able to connect with more alums that live in a specific area and work for a specific company. It's always really nice to be able to share exactly why you're reaching out. As a student, you don't necessarily want to ask your professional contacts for a job. Talking about professional etiquette, it's never good to reach out to someone and on the first touch point you say, hey, I'm interested in a job. Make sure that they understand that you're looking to make connection with a conversation about networking, job search advice, not necessarily say, hey, I'm interested in this particular job. Can you hook me up? I mean, you want to actually reach out and build a relationship. Networking is not just about making one touch point and that's it. It's about having those common interests, having conversations, sharing common storylines, news articles. Once you have those connections, then you can start having those communication pieces that will take it to the next level. This is some suggestions on how to network on LinkedIn. Connect with friends and current classmates. If you're new to LinkedIn and you're trying to build those connections, it's always good to find those people that you already have a relationship with. So people that are in your class, people that you work with, try to find out if they're on LinkedIn. Connect with your connections. An important part of that is once you connect with someone, you're going to find out who their connections are, and you may be able to find other people in common. I'm going to show you how to use the LinkedIn alumni tool, how to join groups and research employers when I show you my profile. It is also important that you do your research prior to reaching out. You want to see how active an individual is with their LinkedIn, what they have been sharing, things on their profile that may indicate if they're on the job search themselves or on the job hunt, if they're recruiting, what their current status is. It's always good, and I would say this in anything on the web, to find out if what you're asking about is current. If something intrigues you and you find a posting or a job opening, a news article, pay attention to things like the validity of it, the current time frame. Was it posted 2 years ago? Is it current? Make sure you're paying attention to those sort of things before you're reaching out to individuals. Gather facts. Be a fact gatherer. Know exactly what it is that you're going in with and what you're going to have conversation about. But wait, there's more. Your social media accounts are also a reflection of your candidacy as at desirable employers. Employers are looking for you. They're trying to find you in any way. I started off this session by saying Google yourself. It is a great way to find out how you're represented on the web in any way, shape, form, or fashion, news, articles, links, photos. Make sure that your interactions through this profile, LinkedIn, are very appropriate to your job search. I encourage students often to follow the employers that they're interested in connecting with. And often they will share articles about research projects they may be doing, major builds that they may be doing, hiring events, anything that you can do to follow them, to like their articles, to comment on their articles. That shows that you're active on LinkedIn, but it also shows that you're interested in what the other party has to say. As a student, you're armed with something most people are not, and you can reach out to further your understanding. That's a great reason behind being able to reach out and say, I'm interested in learning more about your corporation, about your affiliation with this particular organization. Can you talk to me about being a nurse? Can you talk to me about being a mechanical engineer? I'm an alum of the University of Alabama. I'm also from Michigan. Whatever those common threads and themes are, you have that ability to be able to reach out. People are busy, so make sure that you're making the most of their time and that you're being very relevant in your conversations, and that you get to the point pretty quickly. Think about LinkedIn as a personal website. It's a way to show who you are through your character, your personality, your skills and experience. It's meant to kind of elaborate on who you are. Think of it as a virtual portfolio. Now, in another session, we could certainly talk about electronic portfolios, which some students do choose to have to represent who they are. If you do not have that, I highly encourage a LinkedIn profile because you can share documents, you can upload items, make links to other sites. If you've published an article, you can include all of that information and be able to share the entire story on LinkedIn, just like you can on an electronic portfolio. Okay, before I actually show you some things on my web LinkedIn profile, I want to see if y'all have any questions. No questions. I answered everything that y'all could possibly want to know, correct? But wait, there is more. I'm going to show you my profile before we leave. Okay, I've already answered the main question. All right, let me pull up my LinkedIn profile because I want to show you a couple things to keep in mind. And I learn by doing. I encourage you to go to your LinkedIn profile, peruse, look around, find individuals, connect, be active. The more active you are, the more visible you're going to be to recruiters, the more visible you're going to be for networking opportunities. Okay, so let me share my screen again. And bear with me because I'm logged into my account. This is not a demo account, it's actually my account. So hopefully I can show you what you will be seeing as well. Okay, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see my profile? My picture's on the left. You can see, okay, good deal. This is what my feed looks like. When I log in to LinkedIn, this is what I'm looking at. I'm seeing LinkedIn news. I'm seeing top courses. I'm going to talk to you quickly about LinkedIn learning. I'm going to talk to you about your profile and how to connect on a few things. You see that I do have a profile picture. We're going to go into the profile section in just a second. I do want to show you the news feed. As you see here, I'm going to use Chase Fortin. He is one of my co-op students. He is currently at work, and the great thing about this is he's sharing some information about his SolidWorks experience. He's already a connection of mine. I want to make sure that I like this because he's going to be able to see that I saw his article, that I'm interested in what he has to say. As I scroll down, you'll see some of the things that are in my news feed will be anything from other employers, companies, advertisements, other individuals that I have worked with. I'm finding things in my feed that are connections with companies, that are popular courses on LinkedIn, that are my connections. I'm able to follow these individuals. So when you are in LinkedIn and you're making these connections, I highly encourage you to pay attention to what's in your news feed, make comments, like those articles, because other individuals are going to be able to see what you're doing. If I go to my profile, which I'm going to go to really quickly, you're going to see the background. This is what I see when I go in to look at my profile. If you are new to LinkedIn, just know that pretty much by clicking on anything, you're going to be given the opportunity to edit that. You'll see a little pencil here that allows you to be able to edit the background picture, your profile picture, any of this information. I like to point out the way to make your profile or your URL more personalized. If you look up in the top of the screen, can you see my LinkedIn profile URL and it says Amy F. Ratliff? Can y'all all see that? Give me a thumbs up if you can see it. Okay. You may already know how to do this, but if you do not, I encourage you, and for those people who are going to be listening later, I encourage you to go to your edit public profile and URL. There you can actually edit what your LinkedIn URL is. The reason this is better than having I call it gobbledygook, it's all the letters and numbers that don't really mean anything. It's a lot easier for someone to find you, and it's also a lot shorter for someone to include on a resume as a profile URL. So in my case, I put my full name so it would be easier to find. So that's one thing I would say. Always make sure you have your headshot. Make sure you have a shortened URL that tells a little bit more who you are, your name included in that so that you would be found in searches, and that could even be on Google searches. I do have a section in my About. That's kind of my summary of who I am. My experience, I have my experience listed. As I said before, I have it more in a bulleted style. I do intend to go back and kind of make that more in a storytelling mode. I do have my connection with the University of Alabama, my education. I do have the co-op website connected here. I have groups that I'm affiliated with, associations that I have. My particular associations are very relevant to my role as the director of the career and co-op because I am interested in those particular areas and I want to find commonalities and connections with individuals that work at those fields. I do have recommendations. Recommendations is a great way to not only give back to a fellow colleague or classmate, but also to have them speak on your behalf if they know that you have experience in a particular field. Any questions about these particular areas? Y'all are good on that. Okay. So I'm going to go back to home. I want to show you a few things. Before I forget, there is a plethora of LinkedIn Learning tutorials that are available. I encourage you to look out LinkedIn Learning. It's over to the right when you're in your profile. You can really search for anything and everything. You can utilize the LinkedIn Learning that they have available for free. You're able to share that you have completed those sessions, and that's a big part of being active on your LinkedIn profile. Okay, so I'm going to actually go back home. I encourage you to look at this section. I was talking with some folks in my office and I said, you know, you really need to brush up on your Excel skills. So I encourage them to go to LinkedIn Learning. They can find, there's 188 courses that are relevant to Excel. So if that's a skill that you're wanting to build, I encourage you to utilize the LinkedIn Learning resources, and then you're able to share that you have completed that as well. Any questions about LinkedIn Learning? Okay, so I'm going to go back to me. Let me go back to my profile. I'm sorry, it opens a separate window, so I'm going to go back to my first window. What I want to point out here is you can see a little bit more about hashtags, events, groups that I'm a part of, recent interactions that I've had. This will show you that I have joined certain groups. You can actually look at my network and find who I am connected with, my contacts, people I follow, groups I'm a part of. I encourage you to look at what you look like behind the scenes. What are you engaging with? What is that picture that you're showing for yourself? You can look for jobs. You can search by title. You can search by zip code, location. In this case, recruiting manager. I can pull up any recruiting manager position in the state of Alabama. So if you're using this for a job search, you can put any title in. I like to use, you know, I work in the field of engineering, so I may want to put engineer in Alabama. It's going to pull up all the current job listings for anything that has engineer related to the title in the state of Alabama. I could also change that to be Michigan. I've used Michigan as a reference before. It's going to pull that up. So if I'm doing a job specific search based on a geographic location, that's how I want to look at that. Also pay very close attention to when it's posted, the experience level, the actual company. I can do a search. Let's say I'm very interested in Pike Corporation. It's going to say, sorry, I don't really have anything there. If I take this filter off, I want to say I want to look for something that's remote. It's a remote engineer in Michigan. These are positions that you're just putting those filter criteria in to be able to get a little bit more narrow focus on what you're most interested in. Now, networking is just one of those. I'm sorry, job search is part of the features of LinkedIn, but also you can network. So looking at your individuals, finding individuals that you're interested in. If I want to search for, here's an instance, I reached out to a former student of mine, and you can see I searched Michael Rowe. Michael Rowe, I was connected with him already. But if I am reviewing him prior to meeting with him, here's what I know about Michael. Michael is already a connection of mine. I know he's an ambassador. I want to know where he's working now. He's working as a quality manager at MS Companies. I can find out any activity that he has posted, and this is because I am connected to him. I see everything that he likes. What does this tell you? And I know y'all are not going to really speak out, but what this tells me is Michael's already my connection. I can see exactly what he's liked, what he's joined over, the past history of time, whether it's 90 days or a year. I can message Michael. I can find out his experience, which I'm very proud to say he was a co-op ambassador, so I do know him in that capacity. He has licenses and certifications. He has volunteer experience. He has interest. So I can tell a lot about Michael by going to his profile. I can tell a lot about his background, where he is currently. I can find out how he's been active and engaged on LinkedIn recently. So there's a lot in that storytelling. Earlier, I talked about fact finding. That is what you're doing. In a job search or in networking, you're constantly gathering facts, you're researching, you're compiling all that information so it's going to tell you an entire picture and a full representation. Now, let's talk about job search or networking with particular companies. Let's say I'm interested in Mercedes. Mercedes is right down the road from us. I want to make sure that I'm getting the correct one. Mercedes-Benz International. You saw there was a careers LinkedIn profile. If I want to be involved and I'm interested in connecting with individuals that work with Mercedes, or maybe they have job openings, I'm going to want to follow this. So now Mercedes, if they're posting any jobs, any articles, anything interesting, it's going to show up in my news feed. I can find out about any posted videos. And you may ask yourself, why is this important? Well, let's say that you apply to Mercedes and you're going for an interview. They ask you to come in for an interview. And during the interview, they say, tell me a little bit about what you know about Mercedes. Well, you can always refer to what you found on the web, but you can also talk about a video that you saw on LinkedIn. Maybe some connections. You know that there are, 400 alums that work with Mercedes here at Vance that graduated from the University of Alabama. You're able to show that you've conducted research and that you've been thorough in preparing for that particular interview. Now, in this case, I want to follow them because they're going to show up in my news feed. I'm going to be able to see what they are sharing. Also, if you look at the bar that kind of goes across the top, you're going to see about, posts that they've made, jobs, life, people. If you're looking for a job, you can find out if they've recently posted any jobs. You also can utilize people to find if there are any common threads. You can find out individuals that are connected to Mercedes, where they live, where they studied. You can find those common threads. If I were looking for someone who also graduated from the University of Alabama and worked for Mercedes, I could go to Mercedes site, find out where these individuals studied. I'm sorry. Okay, and then it's going to share some of the individuals and people that I may know with those common threads. Okay, so utilizing your connection with employers is very important. Also, with connections that you may have from classes and from student or professional organizations. One thing I am involved in is the National Association of Colleges and Employers. I'm following them. It will allow me to be able to see what information they're sharing and articles that are relevant to me. And in turn, someone that connects with me can also see that I am following those groups and that's something that interests me. Okay, I am going to stop share and see if I have any questions. You know, if I had to sum up LinkedIn, you can get the most out of it by being involved in it, building out your profile, being active, making connections, following news articles, looking for jobs, anything that you can do to build that profile further and to be able to share and elaborate on your experiences and be able to connect with individuals is going to benefit you. Maybe you don't need it now. Maybe you'll need it later. Maybe you do need it now. But today is the time to make sure you build out that profile and get the most out of the virtual networking that is afforded to you by LinkedIn. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be glad to answer those. Definitely go in and put your profile pic on there. Make sure you update your URL so that it is affiliated with your name. And again, the more active you are, the more likely you're going to have those connections and be able to have those common threads with other individuals. Should I be selective with who you choose to network with? Yes. You know, I would not necessarily go and find alums from the University of Alabama who are also connected with Mercedes that I have no other interest with. I would be selective in, you know, the very best way or the best way to kind of start looking at your LinkedIn profile is with common connections. So people you already know, family members, classmates, colleagues. Then as you're networking, you can expand on that. So make sure that you have something that can come together. Maybe they work with someone that you're familiar with. But don't necessarily go out and try to connect with 100 people just for the sake of connecting. You want to make sure that there is a reason behind that. Does that answer your question, Elena? Okay. Did anyone else have any other questions? Okay. Ben's got some ideas on what to change. If you're definitely, if you're on the job hunt, I encourage you to be active with it. I could give a whole nother presentation about the actual job search, but a big part of that is being organized and being active. If you are pursuing opportunities, you really need to carve out a certain amount of time every day. So if LinkedIn is important to you and you want to be more active, I would say, hey, I'm going to spend 30 minutes. I'm going to be looking for individuals. I'm going to be sharing articles. I'm going to be commenting on articles. I'm going to do my research. I'm going to build out my profile. So make sure that you're doing that every so often and carving out that time to do what it takes to build out the best profile and to be the most engaged on LinkedIn so that you can get the best out of what's available to you. If you have any questions, I encourage you to reach out to the Career Center. You can certainly reach out to me. I'll be glad to speak with you one-on-one. We have a lot of great career consultants and coordinators that would be glad to answer any questions about LinkedIn and how to develop your web presence and to manage that web presence. So thank you for participating today. And if you have any further questions, I'm going to put my email in the chat here. You're welcome to reach out to me. And I wish you the best of luck utilizing LinkedIn.
Thank you.
Thank you.